Co-chair, Michael. Good to see you.
Thank you.
So, thanks, Andrew, for doing that. Welcome to the other staff who are here. And Lisa, I want to acknowledge you as well for the quality and regularity of your communications updates. I'm sure we all find them interesting, useful, and often illuminating. So well done on that, you and your colleagues, for putting that together for us regularly. There is no public forum. I have an apology from Kate Wilson, and we're thinking, Liz and I, that Councillor Forbes is also an apology. Difficulty in linking up this morning from Queenstown. I regard the agenda as confirmed unless anybody sees otherwise.
Can we get a
second there?
second for the apologies?
Seconded.
Thank you. Who moved that?
I did. That's all right.
Oh,
Will
good.
you do
Thank you very much. I'm guessing nobody has a conflict of interest. And the minutes of our September meeting from last year are in front of you, and they're open for your scrutiny and for somebody to move their adoption. Thanks, Councillor Hope. Is there a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Calvert. I'll put that motion. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. There is that reference to an action on page 7, which has just been completed. That was the review of the Eco Fund. And as you may be aware, next week we kick off the next round of the Eco Fund.
Oh, yes.
And that'll be interesting, as it always is. I haven't yet approached anybody to join the panel for making the recommendations to the council. But if any of you have an enthusiasm for that task again, it is a bit onerous, I know, but we have a tradition now of doing it very well. So if any of you want to join it again, please let me know today. The first paper, 7.1, is an update on the Communications Engagement Policy review process. Richard will join us. I note that the paper was authored by David Cooper. Is he not with you today?
No, he's not. Sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. If he had been, I would have said well done to him as well, because working with David on several occasions through the freshwater communities meetings was a very good exercise. I see we've got Dougal on Zoom. Is that Dougal?
Good morning.
It is, good. Yeah, welcome, Dougal. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
And thank you for your contributions to this review process too. The purpose of this paper is for us to receive it and to note various steps in the process of this review, including the fact that we can expect on the 12th of May at our council meeting to have a serious proposition put to us about the SEMP policy. Richard, tell us about this paper, anything that you want to highlight.
Yes.
Oh, welcome, Councillor Hobbs. Good to see you.
I just tried the bus service. That's good, but late.
Okay, pleased to hear that. Richard, sorry, was there anything?
No, that's fine. Thanks. I'll just so there's obviously a number of pieces of work underway within the communication space at the moment. This is one of the key ones, so we thought it warranted an update to this committee just on progress made, and particularly with the direction it's taking with regard to an update of the significance and engagement policy, which requires a formal consultation procedure. So we thought it was timely to provide an update on where it had got to and just talk a little bit about the direction it's taken, and then obviously confirming that it does come back here for formal approval prior to any formal consultation. So there's been a recognition of the need to improve our engagement, and that's come both internally from staff and from around this table, but also externally through comments, and Dougal will talk a little bit about the work with stakeholders, but also comments from the Freshwater Visions workshop that you referred to earlier, Michael, and the need for us to better engage and more clarity around how we engage. So from the staff that were at those, the RPS staff at those workshops did feed that back. So it ties in nicely with this piece of work as well. The strategic directions that were set as part of the long-term plan, they talk about commitments in there to work in partnership with mana whenua and also to effectively engage our community. So we're very explicit in what it is we're committing to. And in order to do that, we need to have a significance and engagement, or a document that guides our engagement. And we're proposing to go a step further and set out how our partnership with mana whenua will work, so it's clear for everybody. So those commitments there, we will be able to better deliver on those if we have a document that provides us with better guidance, clarity for the community, and better guidance for our internal staff about how we expect engagement to occur. And we'll get some consistency through that as well. So today we've got a very brief presentation, just a couple of slides that Dougal will run through, talking about the process to date, and some of the outcomes of the discussions that have been had with some councillors around the table, but also some of our stakeholders. And then obviously happy to take any questions on the paper and the process from here.
Richard, thank you for that. That was a good, clear introduction. Before we go to Dougal with his brief PowerPoint, even reading this again last night, I was still a bit mystified about the significance of the word significance in this review process. Because when Nick Donnelly talks about significance, we've got a pretty good grip on that because we know what he's talking about in fiscal terms and so on. In this setting, why is the word significance there?
So look, the word significance is there because we're proposing to, rather than have a significance and engagement policy and a separate engagement policy, because we have to by statute have a significance and engagement policy, and that's the one Nick refers to that's contained within the LTP. We're proposing to replace that with a significance and engagement and Māori participation policy that will meet the statutory requirements of the current document.
So we're wrapping it all up in one.
Correct, but go a bit further and set out the mana whenua partnership and how we will engage with our community on matters of interest and when they can expect us to engage. So it'll be a single document and hopefully be used a lot more by the business than I would suggest the current document is, which meets our statutory needs but isn't necessarily referred to when we consider what engagement we should be undertaking and how we might undertake it.
I think that's really good. Thank you. Councillor Hobbs.
You just mentioned statutory needs. As I came in, the RMA is about to be repealed. Yep. And so therefore, will this be sitting in line with the two replacements to the RMA?
This comes from the LGA.
This is an LGA requirement, not an RMA requirement. So there will still be, and we'll obviously have to wait to see what direction it goes, there will still be the need for notification and consultation through the RMA, but this is a statutory requirement under the LGA to have a significance and engagement policy.
Thank you.
Kevin, did I see your hand up before?
No.
Okay, good. Any other questions before we go to Dougal? Dougal, the floor is yours.
Kia ora koutou, and apologies for not joining you in Dunedin today. My name's Dougal List. I work for the RDC Group, so based in Wellington. We've been assisting Richard and his team with this refresh process. Really just what I wanted to do today was quickly talk you through the process and some of the key findings and how that's informed what we propose in terms of significance and engagement policy and internal practice. Liz, I believe you've got some slides that we can talk through.
Can you possibly share them through your Zoom screen?
Sure.
They are on diligent.
Yeah, the councillors also have them on their devices if that helps at all.
Okay. I'll
I can just share. I'll just share it for you. I've got it.
Great.
Sorry, Liz. It's all right.
Look, I think Richard's done a great job of outlining the background and the need. And as is explained, we are working to develop an update to a refresh of not only the significance and engagement policy, but also how that's given an effect. So this is very much a practical exercise focused on meeting your business needs to support your challenges around the long-term plan and other challenges such as fresh water and so on. So how you work with and engage your communities moving forward. Just on so moving to slide 3, in terms of the key outputs planned, based on the review process that we've done to date, the 2 key outputs that we're working to develop with staff are the significance engagement and Māori participation policy, which is that external kind of promise for your service provision. So we just jump to slide 3 there, Liz. And then the practice plan, which is the internal guidance of how to put that into effect. And those support an ongoing process to improve your capability and capacity. And I think it's really interesting talking with other organisations such as ECAN that have been on this journey. You know, it's a very deliberate approach that's required to improve practice and put in place, you know, the policy frameworks and also the capability to support that. Just moving on to the next slide. In terms of the process that we've followed, slide 4, what we've undertaken is a review of current state, the key challenges and best practice models. So we undertook a review of a range of best practice from around the country, councils and other organisations, you know, how they outline their approach to communications and engagement. And one of the key themes that's coming through there is, as Richard says, to bring forward or bring together the significance policy with also the promise of how you intend to engage with your communities and how you intend to partner with Māori in your community. And that brings that together in a very clear and comprehensive story. So that's the direction of travel that best practice seems to be heading around the country. We undertook a range of interviews with various stakeholders, both internal managers, those working in the communications and engagement space within ORC, also other key organisations that you work with, such as Dunedin City Council, QLDC, and also spoke with a number of external partners as well as iwi. And that really kind of painted a rich picture of the opportunities for improvement and also some of the positive things to build upon then as well. So that's fed into the development of these documents, which the plan is to start to test and refine the ideas in those with stakeholders so that a version can be brought back to you for approval to consult in May. Just moving to slide 5 there, Liz. So the review findings, firstly, and as outlined in your papers, particularly paragraphs 9 and 10, there's a lot of strong support for this review. So both internally and externally, people recognise the need for an opportunity to improve how you engage and communicate with stakeholders. And there's a real opportunity to build on some very strong relationships, including your iwi partnership. So some very positive feedback there from the discussions that we've had, and an opportunity to build on that. Some of the areas to improve that the SEMP will help with is that clarification of roles and responsibilities, how you manage particular stakeholders, who you're going to focus on within the organisation, and so that when you're doing so, you're able to coordinate activity and join up conversations. So rather than 3 different parts of ORC going and talking with, say, the Federated Farmers, you've got a more joined up conversation and you're able to kind of bring together that cohesive story. And that means that engagement way of working can help to serve the business needs. So some of the feedback was that the engagement practice is a purpose in itself rather than being deliberately targeted to the business outcomes and challenges that you've got going ahead. So that's one of the key shifts to make there, is to make sure you're focused on the right stakeholders, about the right issues in the right way that meets their needs and in a joined up way. So they're really servicing the needs of the business. So through that review, we've kind of highlighted a number of areas for improvement, and really the key planks from here is the development of the significance and engagement policy, which is that external facing policy around how, when and why you will engage with people, including what constitutes significance, and then supporting that with an internal practice plan which really kind of sets out those roles, responsibilities, expectations around how we put that into practice as well. So the next steps from here will be to start to test that with a range of stakeholders, just to make sure we're kind of meeting their needs, to have a clearer picture of who those key stakeholders are, that relationships need to really focus on, and where conversations need to focus, and then bring that back to yourselves for approval to consult in May.
Mr. Chairman.
Happy to take questions now.
Councillor Hobbs.
I've got two questions. The first is around the notion of engagement. Often I feel as a councillor when I'm going out to do those things that I'm a recipient and I can't ask questions back or I can't argue, you know? And I always feel and I often feel quite dishonest to myself because I'm listening to stuff that I think is absolutely nonsense, but I don't engage. And I worry about that. And then the second thing, you have this phrase, join up engagement processes. Does that mean, for instance, that you talk about meeting with federated farmers, but not meeting with them alone, not meeting with the Manihira alone, but meeting with them with some other people, so that the people in, not, you know, that federated farmers get to understand that there are some people in the university who really heaved off with their particular viewpoint. And is that what you mean? I'm not advocating it. Well, I am advocating it. But is that what you mean by join up engagement processes?
So should be on. Yeah, couple of things there. In terms of the first comment around how you engage in community meetings, I don't think it gives clarity about when we will be engaging, but that engagement will be designed by the staff to be suitable for that process, and that might be a combination of one-on-one group sessions. It could be any of the come join. Sorry, David has arrived, so I'll just bring him up to the table. So it could be a range of things based on the project and the process that's being worked through. Yeah. There's no one way to engage, I guess. You know, there's a suite of options available, and it would be designed for the project, and it may have both an individual component and a group component, depending on what it is we're engaging on and the outcomes we're seeking from that engagement.
And I just would like to make this comment, Mr. Chair, is that in my life, which has been a strongly political life to a certain degree, the best decisions have been made when we have got everybody in the room to engage, because then you get some honesty out there, instead of people thinking that they can be intimidated, scared by the people in the room. And I've watched that a couple of times at our meetings. I've watched people just remain really silent when they're faced with a whole lot of people from one sector. So I just wanted to lay that out there.
Thanks, Councillor Hobbs. Hilary.
I'm really appreciating the more holistic approach. Well, that's how it feels like to me, with more people involved and more things. What I'm struggling with a wee bit, though, is when we use the ORC or we or the organisation, sometimes the governance people can get lost. And I noticed that description of what was described as stakeholders. You know, we've been out in doing this review, we've been out talking to stakeholders and everything. None of them involves talking to us. So we're not. Yeah, sorry, just a correction. Yeah. So we did. What didn't come? Sorry, it didn't. Sorry. Wasn't there, but we there was an email that went to everybody, and then there's a couple of follow-up emails to the co-chairs, so there was some councillor input into the process to date. Yeah, there isn't any. But it wasn't. You're right. It wasn't clear in the slides. Well, yeah, there isn't. When words are used like we, and it's just that. I think we need to be, we round the table here, need to be clearer about who the we is and at what points it wafts in and out of our processes, rather than everybody else talking to everybody else all the time. And then it finally comes to a meeting that we don't know necessarily anything much about. And I notice, for example, and this again isn't a criticism, I'm just saying that this is where my slight disquiet comes from. In the ODT on Saturday, there was a thing about water catchments and other things, and it says the regional plan, water was amended, that makes many, as part of the review of the water plan and development of the land and water regional plan, staff would be considering, along with communities, the suitabilities of land use within the Kakanui catchment. Now, who knows what the ODT picks up from whatever they pick it up, but we don't belong in that picture. Staff will talk to the communities and consider something, and I'm thinking, where are we? So I'm just wanting the significance and engagement policy we end up with to be able to, for me to answer the question of where am I in these processes, and when we use the words ORC, who do we mean? Do we mean the staff, or do we mean the governance, or because I'm just saying I feel a bit lost in that, and especially when I see something written saying the staff will consider with the community, and I'm not sure where we belong. So I don't know what to do with that comment. I'm just a...
So if we take that as a question, yes, we can provide greater clarity both in the document, and we'll make sure we're conscious of our language we use in the document, but also in future plans around engagement, be very clear of the governance role, and obviously have that conversation with governance and the staff role within that engagement.
Good. It's sort of off the side of what Marion was saying in the where do we fit sort of sense.
Hilary, I thank you for those comments. I found them interesting. I relate to them. And I think this is one of the reasons why I acknowledge the work that Lisa and her colleagues do on those now regular communications updates, showing the topics, the communities, the issues, and we're all getting that now, and we can see where we'd like to have an input, where we'd like to go to a meeting, where we'd like to have more information, where we'd like to get in touch with Richard and his team and say, hey, what's going on here? Can I play a part? That's why I see those updates as being a really big step forward in Team ORC having a joined up communications engagement approach. Now, I'd lost track about who else was next. David, good to see you, by the way. Thanks for coming to the meeting today.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just in response to that question, that specific discussion around land use change in the Kakanui was driven by an existing provision in the regional policy statement. So there's the I guess the council positioning on some of those issues and what we're going to take forward into other engagement processes, and there's existing resource management planning, and I think we were referring to the latter. Just in terms of Councillor Hobbs' question around improving engagement between organisations, I think...
You're very good at it, I have to say.
Thank you.
You are. You're a superb chair. Facilitator.
Thank you. I'll take that on board.
No, don't.
Does it mean I have to do it continually? Just from what I've seen, the regional councils who do that well are the ones that pull the various stakeholders together.
Yeah.
So they act as a coordinator and provide forums for those stakeholders to talk to each other. That doesn't mean that Otago University aren't going to be upset about Federated Farmers' positions. Yeah. But it does mean that we're at least trying to nut those out and there's better understanding.
Thank you.
Councillor Scott.
2 points, if I may. The first one is, I see there was a series of interviews with councillors. As a matter of interest, how many councillors were interviewed?
Well, I know Councillor Noon, me, and I think you, Michael, you weren't? Alexa.
Dougal, I think it was 3 in the end. Is that correct?
I mean, orally.
That is correct. We ended up speaking with 3 councillors. We tried to set up several other meetings as well, but we were unable to confirm those times.
Can you just name those 3?
Councillors Noon, Deaker and Forbes.
So Laws wasn't done, even though he's co-chair.
Mr. Chairman,
we made
it's
a
worth
number
noting that everyone was invited
to take up the opportunity to have the interview, and there was only 3 that obviously made that work, and there were others that for some reason it didn't, a time wasn't suitable for both parties to have the conversation. That's my understanding.
Sorry,
I apologise, I didn't even see that.
I recall having a conversation with Richard about what it should look like. Is that not to do with this?
So there was an email that went out to all councillors, and it was I'll track them down just to be absolutely certain. And then there was a separate email to the co-chairs and the chair, just as an extra to the one to all councillors, and then from that we managed to make some appointments, and there was a follow-up, and I think you got an opportunity for written comments as well from Vicky.
You rang me.
No, that was the community survey.
Oh, that's right.
Different piece of work. Right. Yep. So we did get that paper's coming to a different meeting. So look, there were 3 in the end in terms of feedback. That was the total number.
Yep. No, that's fine.
Right. You had another point you wanted.
Yeah, I have. I just made the comment that where you say included a series of interviews with councillors, and it turns out there were 3 of them. I just wonder if that's overcooking it a little bit. In terms of the iwi participation, I'm really looking forward to where that potentially could end up. And my question really is, quite simply, is there best practice models out there that will provide us some insight? It seems to me with the mana to mana over the years that it's had its strengths and it's had its weaknesses. That its strength is that you have a group of people getting together and chewing over certain issues. It seems to me their weakness as a councillor sitting to the side, that you didn't always understand or know what was going on.
Yep.
And the whole iwi and Mariadam, really, it seemed to me, it didn't necessarily sort of permeate through the organisation like it potentially could have.
It's getting better.
Doesn't mean that.
Yeah, I'm just saying in relation to the mana to mana. So I'm hoping with this best practice model that it won't necessarily be through that, conduit, that it'll be a bit wider.
Okay.
And a better connection for a better outcome.
What would it look like if it was a bit wider?
What it would look like from my perspective, because it just seems to me the conduit of the mana to mana was enabling for the mana to mana, but it wasn't actually that enabling for the wider organisation. So what would it look like? I'm just hoping that all councillors, all staff are on board with what's going on. Obviously we have, there's things going on in the background, I read, and staff and so forth, and that's great. But what it would look like is that the organisation as a whole, I think, would be just a bit better aligned in terms of iwi participation.
Okay. Mrs. Gardner, would you like to make comments?
2 things. I guess in all of this, there's the staff accountability and then there's the councillor accountability.
Yeah.
And I just want to make the point that we've had some consideration of whether or not the commentary is overcooked about the councillor engagement. But at the end of the day, there has to be some leadership that comes from councillors. It can't just be a one-way track in terms of we make these opportunities available, we email, we try to engage you, and then you don't engage. So I just want to put that out there, that I think, there has to be a two-way street in this. And it's a little frustrating to do a piece of work and turn up and then have criticism because some of you don't remember that you had an email where you weren't engaged. So, Councillor Laws, in fact, I think there were at least 3 attempts to try and get you to engage as the co-chair of this committee.
I don't recall those.
Well, I can get you the evidence if you would like it.
I would like it.
Yes, you can have it. On the side of mana to mana, I think it's really important to remember that we are one part of the partnership for mana to mana, but there is another part of the partnership. And the construct for mana to mana is as much about what iwi prefer and the way that they wish to engage with us as it is about the way that we wish to engage with iwi. And somehow there has to be the marrying of the two. We can't apply our construct to our iwi relationship and expect that it will always be defined in that way. So I guess what I'm saying to you is I hear the point of view and I hear the comments, but I think we do have to remember that our treaty partners have expectations, that we have settlements in place, that we have legislation in place that makes it really clear that they're entitled to participate in decision making through enabling that. And if mana to mana is the construct, then I think we need to think about that. And just on that point, we've got a mana to mana coming up. And at the moment, we can only get half of the 6 councillors to attend.
Yes.
So
I seem to have lost that one.
You know, I think it's really important that we're just being honest about we have a place in this engagement as well. And if we're going to do it successfully, then all of us need to think about those accountabilities. And the last thing I'd just add is council, as in the 12 of you, are at one place in terms of your EV engagement. The organisation, I think, is moving in a slightly at a faster pace, if you like. So we have, since I arrived, been engaging in many different ways. For example, when I recruited the executive, the members of the executive team, I had Tahu Portaki on the interview panel. When ELT met for a strategic session last year, we invited Edward to speak specifically with him about how we best enable the partnership inside of the organisation with staff. We've now organised with the Otago Polytechnic to give us some training, and that's being rolled out this year. We also took advice from the Chief Executive of Okaha, who said, well, actually, as an organisation, you need to build a foundation before we can engage with you on a more, on a deeper level. So I guess they're the 3 things I wanted to say. You know, I do think it's a bit of a two-way street here, and we all have accountability in this engagement and these relationships.
Very well.
I'll just provide some clarity because I know there's a lot of emails going around. So the 23rd of October was the email to all councillors, and on the same day there was a separate one sent to councillors Noon, Deaker and Laws as the co-chairs of this committee and the chair. And then, Michael, there was a follow-up on the 20th of November, and then on the 23rd, the opportunity for written feedback, because I appreciate you couldn't make the Zoom times that were offered. So those were the email dates.
Right, those.
Okay. Thank you all so far. Hilary.
I'm just thinking about where Port Otago fits in here. Not because they're not, they're a separate entity, not under our control, but they are us at some level. And I would have thought maybe we want something in there that says that we are asking the question of Port Otago from time to time about what they're doing in the way of some of these things, because they are us. I mean, I don't know how the DCC has got away with so long sort of trying to distance himself from Aurora, but it hasn't convinced anybody really with half a brain that they're not directly responsible for the company, and we are responsible not for meddling in it, but for just something as simple as sort of at some level asking a question. What is your engagement with Ana Whenua or whatever? What are you doing so as we can be sure that they are engaging in a way that we would be, that would fit in with our values and our policies, and just thinking, should we have some...
Richard, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, look, I think that's a separate conversation around documents that, and Nick may be able to comment on this, documents that set our expectations for how the port should operate. and any engagement expectations separate to the document that guides ORC's business and how we engage on things. I don't think that it would be an appropriate process within this document to set expectations for Port Otago's engagement.
Is Port Otago a stakeholder of ours?
They may be, depending on the project that we're talking about and the need to engage.
I'm just sort of asking the question where our relationship with them fits in this whole. Just sort of asking the question in two levels. One of them, would we be engaging with them as the community and as other things as a stakeholder, and separately, would we, for example, if we were asking what they're doing about some things, we might want to put in the SOE or propose for the SOE that they do something that fits in with our policy or something, do we?
So I'm still, Nick, I don't know if you can comment on the documents that exist that set those expectations for the port, because I still don't think that this would be the mechanism to do that.
No, through the chair. No, I agree. I don't think it is. This is about the significance and engagement policy with the community, of which the port may be one of those stakeholders that you're engaging on. Like, for example, when we're engaging on the RPS, the port might be a party that's involved in that engagement and consultation. As to what the port is doing around its engagement with the community, we have, and you as council knowing what they're doing, we have the port report to council basically 3 times a year. They report their half year, which they're about to do later this month. They report their statement of corporate intent, which outlines a whole lot of things around what they're doing in the community. So that has, initiatives that they're doing and what they do around that. And then they present their end of year result. Also, in between those formal public meetings, we have a Port Liaison working group who meets regularly with the port to discuss issues, of which this sort of thing can be discussed at that meeting or at the updates when the port comes. If councillors have questions about how they're engaging with the community, which they outline in their regular updates anyway around their local, the Port Noise Environment Committee that they have, and various other community engagement and projects and initiatives that they have going on. So there's already some quite clear reporting lines and mechanisms that we use currently.
Thanks, Nick. That was helpful.
Yeah, so perhaps we want just a one-liner in our policy saying, as regards Port Otago, we deal with this through our mechanisms of something. So it acknowledges that we have thought about it, and that's how we do it.
I think that's a fair point. Yeah.
Can I just ask the obvious question? When is the mana-to-mana meeting?
Next week.
Okay.
Which is the Wednesday? Yes?
Yeah, 17th.
That's the confusion. That's why I said I wasn't coming. It's down under the draft agenda as Tuesday the 17th.
It is Tuesday the 17th.
It is Tuesday.
It is Tuesday the 17th.
It's not Wednesday.
No, Tuesday the 17th.
I knew I couldn't make the Tuesday, but I could have made the Wednesday. So it's Tuesday the 16th of February.
Sorry, Wednesday the 17th.
So it is Wednesday.
Wednesday the 17th.
Oh, that's confusing. So it's Wednesday the 17th.
Was for Wednesday the 17th.
Great.
But it's down under Tuesday the 17th.
No,
There's my draft agenda.
I don't have got that.
Okay, back to the topic. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm sure Liz will clarify the exact time and the date of the mana-to-mana. Back to Dougal and David and Richard and their paper. I'm inclined to, at this stage, move the recommendations, which are to receive the paper and to notice contents. Is you seconding?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Is there any further discussion? Pardon me.
Sorry, this is going out for public review. Yeah, significance policy. Yes.
It is.
No, it's not.
No, so as per the recommendation 3, we will be coming back in May with the draft document so you can review it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's recommendation 3. Thank you. Councillor Noon.
Look, just a really, really brief comment, and it relates to Marion's point earlier about when we're engaging with our community. There are times where councillors play quite a different role. Sometimes they are advocates for a particular policy or policy change. Other times, and if you take the freshwater management unit process where we were required to go out and have a conversation with our communities and essentially report back on their views rather than council going out to ask for a particular view, if you know what I mean. We were required to essentially not go out with our view, particularly the elected arm, and the facilitator, David and co, they provided that framework for that feedback, and we sat with members of various communities or whatever, but we were there very much to facilitate or play a facilitation role rather than bring our view to the table. So I just wanted to share that because I think there are times where we need to take a view to the community. There are other times where we need to be open-minded, I suppose.
Yep. Thank you. Well, a good point, well made. Is there any other discussion? Dougal, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for your presentation. I'll put the motion. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And we have one more item on the agenda, which is from Amanda, the revised meeting dates for this year. That's
just a question. The ones in red are changes?
They are, correct.
Okay. I'm going slightly mad. My colleagues won't know that yesterday.
We hadn't noticed.
Yeah, well, yesterday I rang because I thought we had a meeting. I caused consternation. I can't find the email which told me there was a meeting.
I think it was next week. Same time next week.
Actually, I've just noticed, Amanda, that Mana to Mana meetings are not on your schedule. Is there a reason for that?
No, just because they're not these are the publicly notifiable meetings that are under the LGA, the Mana to Mana. We don't publicly notify those meetings.
Sure, I understand. Anything else you wanted to say about this table?
No, I had a couple of quick comments unrelated to the table, if I was allowed to make those, but once you've considered the table of meetings.
You're certainly allowed to make any comments you like.
Great. Well, there were just two...
Kevin.
Yeah, no. Oh, well. Two quick comments. One was your chair has mentioned just looking at some time for councillor alone time as part of the regular meeting cycle. So we'll look at that and put something in diaries. And the second quick update I wanted to let you know was that we have now had Diane Railton, who's over behind the pole, is joining the governance team to be our second governance support officer. So she'll be doing handover with Liz for the next few weeks, and then we will be looking at her picking up council strategy and planning and regulatory committee as the committee secretary. So we're really, really pleased to have Di on the team. Yep. I think most of you know her already.
She did a great job with the Eco Fund, and she's a good golfer.
Yes. Two great skills.
Exactly.
Carry on.
Do we have a motion for this? We do, I'm sure, somewhere. We do. We receive the report and we adopt the calendar for 2021. It's moved by Councillor Noon. It's seconded by Councillor Hope. Any further discussion? Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? It's carried. Thank you all very much, Councillor Hobbs.
It's just a question of the person who you own the calendar, don't you? Or do you own the calendar? Who owns it?
The governance team does.
The governance team.
This is the year. I filled out my diary and then there's changes. And I imagine there are going to be changes again because I work a year ahead because of obligations. Can you do a 2-month thing out to us? Like the coming month, so that's absolutely clear, because on the 10th of March, I have an absolute mare's nest on here now, which is a result of the change here and
I can send out a monthly calendar.
A monthly thing, would that
or
help?
bi-monthly.
Yeah, because that asking too much. It's just, it's closer to the time.
Yes, I can still caveat that.
Sometimes it is only a couple of weeks before that we're able to confirm times once we know the full breadth of the agendas and the papers and what's happening. So it is a bit of a moving feast. And at the moment, there's a lot of pressure for your time. So you'll see that we've had to add a workshop on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
So in a couple of weeks, it'll be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because there's just a lot of material coming through at the moment. So we'll do our best to keep you
Make
ahead.
God laugh, tell them your plans.
Yes.
Declare the meeting closed.
That's the 10th of March.
Can I just make a comment, Mr. Chair, just before we close? It was just on mana to mana, and I just reflect on a comment made by our CE that there appears to be some difficulty getting a turn. We've got 6 representatives on mana to mana. If that is an issue for people, perhaps we should ensure that we are having close to our 6 there on a regular basis, because if we are taking this serious, and perhaps that might need some people to reflect that are on it, to say, well, actually, I can't make those meetings, and let's put a substitute in there at least. And I'm not saying people need to go off, but I think we need a representation so it's shown that we are taking this relationship exceptionally seriously.
Michael.
We have discussed this before. It would seem to me that the best way to do this is to see which 6 of us could go, or to rotate it. The reason I suspect that Councillor Forbes and myself had the problem with the Tuesday is because I've got something else and it's 225 kilometres away. I've got to travel down that 225 kilometres and then come back. Councillor Forbes has to do that more. If we've got something on the same day, it's impossible to do. You could Zoom it, but it's not the same. It's not the same as being in the room. So, and given that these meetings last anything from an hour to a little bit longer, it's a long way to come for an hour meeting or 90 minutes or whatever it might be. Here's the solution, it would seem to me. We should just simply see the 6 councillors who are available. Alternating around the 12 would seem to make perfect sense. Confining it to 6 would seem to make no sense at all. So you've always got a good representation there of available councillors, but it also allows all councillors the opportunity to commune in that partnership.
I think there's wisdom in that. Councillor Noon, any thoughts about that?
Well, as long as we have the 6 turning up, if it's not voluntary, but if it was going to rotate, at the end of the day, I think as for us to be serious partners with iwi, I think it's really, really important we play our role in terms of turning up to meetings. So if it helps to get the 6 around the table, I would support it.
Yep.
If the 6 each have a shadow one, namely the other 6 of us, so as that if they can't turn up, or just, it's a nice day or it isn't a nice day, they can get their shadow friend to go instead of them.
Whatever the mechanism is,
It doesn't matter, as long as there are 6 councillors.
Yeah.
The 6 are Michael Deaker, Marion Hobbs, Kate Wilson, Carmen, Gretchen, Councillor Noon,
Forbes,
and Councillor Laws.
Yep.
Oh, so I'm not on it.
You are.
You are on it.
You are, you've been deputy.
The deputy chair is always on.
So we have
Mana to
7 members of Mana to Mana.
Yeah.
Councillor Noon, Councillor Laws, Councillor Deaker, Councillor Forbes, Councillor Hobbs, Councillor Hope, and Councillor Robertson.
Carmen.
I was just going to say, I'll be very honest and say in my first term, I had no idea what Mana to Mana did. And when I was asked to go on, it was really lovely, thank you. But I actually had to go and ask someone and said, well, what's this about? I don't know how everyone feels, but I'll put it out there and say this. It really is nice to get the minutes, when they come out, when we're on it. But is that something, I know that not everyone's on it, but is it something everyone feels that they'd like to see the minutes afterwards to see how we've progressed? Yes. They are a big partner. I think that's a great thing. But I definitely feel there's more participation for us to be with the Mana to Mana. I didn't feel that in my first year. I felt it was a very excluded club and that was it, but you never asked what went on.
The minutes are on diligent, is my understanding.
And I just think that's a good way to do it. But I'm sorry, there is a bit of a clash with the emails. It's just the way Embora Schools was looked in, so I do apologise. So yes, I can attend.
Carmen, get in touch with me if you can't go to any stage.
You'll be my shadow.
I'll be your shadow.
Okay. Thank you.
So
if you
are we-
wanted to change the membership arrangement, you will have to do a formal paper.
Yeah. This isn't this paper.
No, I know.
This discussion.
Yes.
Brian.
But the comms is important.
So if the minutes are on diligent, do we get, an indication that, hey, the minutes are now on diligent, or do we just throw a dart and think we'll find it?
So once the minutes from the last 3 meetings are all up there on diligent, but not the most recent meeting because they'll be adopted next week by the Mana-to-Mana
Yeah,
group.
but if you're not on the Mana-to-Mana, how do you know there's been a meeting? How do you know there's minutes? I mean, or do you just look at it 3 months later when...
Well, we could possibly, when we add it, we could send a notification to say Mana-to-Mana minutes have gone out, send that to everyone, and then everyone can go and have a look. Would that work?
Thank you.
Okay.
There's not a lot going on.
Probably a question for Amanda. I mean, how practical is it to align Mana-to-Mana meetings with either a workshop day or committee days for the organisation?
Well, Mana-to-Mana determines its own meetings at the end of each meeting, so it's dependent on iwi reps and councillors as to when they want them to be. So next week it's in line with audit and risk, so it has lined up.
Sometimes Mana-to-Mana happens at the request of iwi.
Yes.
Yep.
Can we perhaps discuss it at Mana-to-Mana first, the issue that we've just touched on now, and get some feedback from the committee itself, and then make a decision for the longer term?
I think it's just really important to remember that we can't just apply our construct to Mana-to-Mana.
Absolutely.
We have to take into account our partner and the way that our partner works.
Mr. Chairman, can I just add something to that, because it's pertinent to a bill that's going through the House at the moment. The conversations that the things I've taken out of Mana-to-Mana, and is sometimes that they see themselves as partners, not as representatives or one small part or one party to be consulted. They are not the equivalent of forest and bird. They are partners. And it's 50-50, not 1 out of 12.
Listen, I don't want to disagree, but that is not what Court of Appeal said.
I'm not arguing that it's Court of Appeal, Michael. I'm arguing that is what I've taken from what has been said at Mana-to-Mana.
That's fair enough. Sorry.
Okay.
But because the concept of partnership, I think we have an imperfect understanding of around this table ourselves.
I would agree.
I don't think we've ever really discussed it or said what it is.
No.
And I keep on hearing this word partnership, and it seems to mean everything to everybody. And we need to have that discussion before long. We're about to go into a Mana-to-Mana meeting next Wednesday, now we've clarified that. That's all right. But we're meant to go into a meeting next week and talk about Maori wards. Haven't discussed that around here. We've got some really important issues to talk about, I would think, at Mana-to-Mana. But the most important is what the concept of partnership means and our relationship in these Mana-to-Mana meetings with our treaty partner. We haven't had that discussion.
I don't want to get into a debate, Mr. Chairman, but my understanding on the agenda for the 17th is the announcement, when you talk about Maori wards, it's the announcement by the local government minister about the latest legislation change.
No, that's not what I'm talking about, though. I'm talking about our concept, for Pete's sake.
Yeah.
It's a simple idea of partnership with Ngāi Tahu in this particular... Sorry?
I was just going to say, that's what the Mana Whakapono agreement is all about. That's that conversation.
But it's not a 50-50.
I did close the meeting eight minutes ago.
Oh, yeah.
We're still
I've been acting as a informal chair, But
We are
I
still
think,
live because.
Yep,
we did
that's
not
fine.
close
Yes,
it.
but we're not still in the meeting.
no, we're not in a formal meeting at all.
What's next then, Michael?
So we're having a conversation, and the next thing is lunch. In fact, I declare it time for lunch.
12 to 1.
Mr. Chair. We were still